Hello, today's video is not about how to take apart or open up a tile sport or a tile style. There are plenty of videos already covering that on YouTube, and I'll put some links to a few in the description below. What today's video is about is just some guidance and my opinion on opening up a tile sport and replacing the battery and the use it has afterwards, because once you've opened it, chances are it's not going to be properly waterproof again and it's going to look pretty ugly. Here's an example of kind of what they look like when you've opened them and you reseal them. You can do it with glue, but if you're the kind of person that has opened your tile to replace the battery, the chances are you'll want to replace it again in the future. So gluing it together may not be the best idea. So I have quite a lot of these tiles. I use them, I've got the tile wallet, the tile slim for my wallet, and got them on all my keys. I just love, I think it's a brilliant product. I love it. And when the batteries went in these current ones, I have bought myself some more, the new replaceable ones. But I thought, hey, it seems such a waste to throw the old ones away. And, they're kind of expensive. So the first one I took apart, following a video on YouTube. The first video I saw, he said, well, cut the metal off, and then you can get into it quite easily. And then the second video I watched said, actually, you don't need to cut the metal off. You can just use a screwdriver to kind of pry in the edge. So I followed that video where he said, don't cut the metal ring off. Just, put your screwdriver in the edge and prise it apart. And the first time I did it, it worked. And I managed to replace the battery in this one and then, wrap it back together again. But the second time I did it, whilst prising apart, it was quite difficult, the second one. They seemed to be glued together, inconsistently. Some of them are glued together really well, and it's very hard to get the case apart without cracking it and doing that to it, basically. And other times they come apart quite easily, in my experience. So anyway, unfortunately, when I was cracking the second one apart, I accidentally split the board. I'm not sure if you can see, it's a bit difficult to see, but annoyingly I cracked it right where the Bluetooth antenna is. So yeah, that's ruined now. I mean, it still rings if you press the button with the battery in, but the Bluetooth isn't working, and my soldering skills aren't quite good enough to fix it at that level. So that's done for. So this is my kind of top tip. If you are the kind of person that wants to replace the battery in your tile, as I said before, you're probably going to want to do it again in the future. So don't glue it together. And to that end, to make life easier on yourself, I recommend that you do cut the metal, because then you can actually use like a hacksaw blade. Use a nice thick one, I recommend, not the tiny ones, but this size. Because once you cut the metal off, you can then use a saw to gently go all the way around, and and get it perfectly cut open, with smooth edges. Okay. If you prise it apart, you're bound to end up with mashing up these edges here, the little kind of bits that on one side it's an outie, on the other side it's an innie. Excuse the bad phrasing, but you'll see here there's a groove here, and on here there's a ridge. Oh, there you go, ridge and groove, that's it. So they inlay the glue in the groove, and then they put this on top. So even if you do a really neat job, it's bound to get mashed up when you prise it apart. So my advice is, you know, I couldn't do this with my pliers. I had to use a hacksaw to get this one apart. It really is very tough. Tile did a great job on whatever they, on the construction of these. I think you'd actually need a bolt cropper to get through it. My strong electrician's pliers wouldn't go through it. So I recommend a hacksaw. Yeah, so the second tip is, if you're going to replace the battery, you really struggle to get them to look neat when you've kind of taped them back together, assuming you're thinking along the same lines as I am, and gluing's a bad idea. Taping is probably the best idea because you can take them apart again in the future. So you just have to come to accept the fact that they're going to look ugly. I saw on one of the videos of another guy taking one apart and repairing it. I thought to myself, oh, what a rubbish job that guy's done. It's such a lazy job. But in actual fact, it's not easy to get them to look neat. So my recommendation is that if you're going to replace the batteries, don't have any hopes of using the tile again in anywhere visible, like on your keychain where it could get wet or it could get smashed apart easily. Once you've taken them apart, confine them to something like a bag or somewhere where they're not going to come into contact with water and they're not going to be seen very often. For example, these ones, these used to be on my keychain and they stood up brilliantly to, a year or two of punishment on my keyring. You can see the metal is fairly worn, and especially this one. This is from my main vehicle, worn away, but still completely structurally sound. But now that they've had the batteries replaced, I'm confining them to my laptop bag and my carry-on, airplane luggage and other things like that. They're not going to be seen. They still function absolutely perfectly, and make sure you leave a hole where the speaker is. But they function perfectly, but they look ugly as hell. So that's the whole point. I'm now confining this to somewhere where it won't be seen. Anyway, I thought I'd just give a little demo of perhaps a nice way to wrap them back together using tape. I've already replaced the battery in this. As I said, there are other videos that will show you that. Better than I can, because I don't have very good camera equipment and it's hard to do stuff in front of the camera, basically. Another quick point with regards to not opening them up with a screwdriver, but instead using the saw. There are some tiny little pegs here and here, and if you're prizing it apart, you're very likely to snap these. And they're important because they help keep the circuit board exactly in place, and that's important for the pins that touch the speaker. If I show you this, this and this pin connect to the piezo buzzer speaker, and of course these pins of the battery. The battery can't really go anywhere because it's held in place in this kind of receptacle, this area. So that, but it's just generally good if the circuit board can't move around from where it was originally intended to be. Okay, so once you have the battery in and everything, do double click and test that it works. I can't do that because it will make my phone ring and disrupt the recording. But you just check it works before you actually start to tape it back together. Now, I do have white tape, as you can see here, but I'm using black just so I can demonstrate more easily on the video, so you can see it visually clearer. This is basically PVC tape. We call it in the UK electrical tape. It's you can get it in lots of different colours, but black and white's obviously a pretty good choice for the tile sport and the tile style. So using the black tape, it's just a very simple method, but I thought I'd share it because I thought, wow, this is actually quite handy. Put it on about halfway, press it down hard, and what you need to do is well, I'll just show you. It's kind of, you have to pull it tight. So at all times you're keeping the tile pressed together. And the idea is that I noticed when I was doing it that it very neatly, as you wrap it round, it kind of just goes around the edges. And the PVC tape sticks very nicely to itself, and as you know, once it's been stuck onto itself for a few days, it goes really sticky and it's not coming apart easily at all. I do quite a lot of work with electrical tape in my job, and it's you know, it's great at sticking to itself. It doesn't stick to greasy surfaces very well, so it might be an idea to clean the tile, you know, if it's greasy, if it's been handled a lot. But generally the tape will stick to itself really well, and because you're kind of mechanically wrapping it around the tile, there's not much chance of it you know, coming loose. And then basically once you've done one wrapping to hold it together, which is important, otherwise it'd be too fiddly to do on your own, you can then use another, actually I'm going to do it with the white one so you can see the difference visibly a bit better. As you're doing this, keep pressing so it can't slip, but also pull it tight, because that's, you know, where you get the strength from. It's going to help keep it held together nicely. I'm using about 6 inches or 15 centimeter lengths of this tape, and what you can do is you can snip the corners so that you don't get that kind of sticking up part. Just press them down. Again, it's not as neat as I'd like. I mean, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, although I rarely do anything that's perfect, you know. But you know, and you could leave it at that if you want it. It just depends how you know, perfect you want it. But you know, then you can then use another strip to do another round of it, basically. Now again, I am just using the black to give you guys a clear idea of what's happening. If I was doing this all in white, then obviously it'd look a lot neater, but just doing it so you can see where the black's going easily on the video. Yeah, if you happen to just covered one of the speaker holes, obviously it's very important to for the noise to be able to come out of the speaker, because it's only a little piezo buzzer. So if you do happen to cover it with the tape, just create a little V or something like that, just so that the sound can come out. Because if you own a tile, I'm sure that's why you're watching this video, if you cover those holes just with the finger very lightly, you'll notice that the sound stops. So it's very important not to cover it with the tape. This is one I did earlier. I'm not very proud of it, but it's not coming apart for sure. It's really strong and tough. It's not covered the holes. Obviously it's just PVC, so it's not going to impair the signal at all, and it works perfectly. So yeah, that's my advice. Use PVC electrical tape, or insulating tape as it's known in other places, and then when it comes to you know, a year or two's time, when you need to replace the batteries again, it's easy. You can just peel the tape off or cut it off or whatever, and it'll come apart. Okay, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a long video waffling on, but I hope that's been helpful to somebody, and I will you know, put a picture up of what it can look like done with the white tape. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.